This is Akashvani. In the program Money Talk, now we bring you a discussion on 9 years of NDA government transparent taxation system. The participants are Sanjeeva Narayan, Chartered Accountant, and Anubha Rohatgi, Akashvani Correspondent.
Ever since the NDA government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power in May 2014, several initiatives and reforms in various sectors have been introduced in these 9 years. One of these areas is the country's taxation system, where a slew of measures has led to a more efficient tax culture and increased tax transparency. To discuss more about this issue, we have with us Chartered Accountant Sanjeeva Narayan. Mr. Narayan, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be on the show.
The Narendra Modi government in its 9 years tenure has brought about many changes in the country's taxation system, including the introduction of the Goods and Services Tax, GST, and changes in income tax rules. Now, overall, how important have these changes been and reforms in creating a more efficient and transparent tax culture?
Well, ever since one of the Modi government's mantras has been promoting ease of doing business. So most of these initiatives, the major ones being introduction of GST, rationalization of tax rates, introduction of faceless schemes, somewhat dispute resolution mechanism for small taxpayers, and alternative tax avenues for salary class. So all of them have been basically designed and aimed towards improving the ease of doing business, as well as, removing the kind of providing succor to the lower tax reduction, salary taxpayers of society, or the major brunt of the tax burden. This being the case, the initiatives have definitely been in the right direction, promoted towards, providing relief to the various sections of business as well as tax-paying society.
It's been 5 years since the GST was introduced. It was introduced in 2017, and we saw highest ever monthly GST collection in April this year. So how has the GST as a uniform tax on supplies of goods and services turned India into one market with its underlying philosophy of one nation, one tax?
Yeah, definitely. Definition of GST, it subsumed various other, I think about 18, 19 other taxes into one single tax, and promoted, movement of goods from one state to the other. It subsumed things like octroi, entry taxes, customs of course is separate, but excise duties, state taxes, which was earlier a big rigmarole and which was a big, compliance problem for most businesses. So by having one single point of taxation and simultaneously doing away with the retrograde, the allowing input tax credits at various stages, it has helped to reduce not only the tax burden, but also the compliance burden, and made businesses more efficient and profitable. But at the same time, reducing the emphasis on online, interaction with the department, it has reduced the personal interaction. And so the necessary resources that went into all that, there was unnecessary wastage of resources going into the department, collecting various kinds of forms, submitting them, having manual reconciliations. All those have kind of, they seem to be part of history now. So with 5 years of introduction of GST, initially there were problems, and a reform of this nature and this magnitude was always going to be difficult, and it had to have its problem at various stages. But over a period of time, the government has been proactive and dealing with various issues on a regular and immediate basis. And it's evident in the buoyant GST collection in the last couple of months. I think the day is not far when we'll reach 2 lakh crores revenue from GST next couple of months maybe.
Yes. Coming to the other, the reforms that have been introduced in the other area of taxation, which is the income tax rules, they've seen so many changes over the last 9 years. At present, the taxpayer has a choice to file under the old or the new tax regime. Now, both have their own benefits, but on a bigger scale, it is seen as a power of choice that the government has given to the taxpayer. How do you see that?
The power of choice is a big thing. It's the ability to be able to decide which way you would want to go. So given the choice, it has definitely widened the avenues for tax planning and, with a view to optimize your tax liabilities and your tax outgo. So, and at the same time, dovetail it into the kind of, the investments and various other things that you would like to do for tax savings. So with various options available, taxpayer, of course, sometimes too many choices lead to confusion. But in this case, the choice is being limited to one or two. And I think with effects from the next assessment year, the default system is going to be the new regime. So given that, the options, of course, we as chartered accountants sometimes face problems in terms of calculation. But over a period of time, we've got used to all of that. And so I think the move by the government to provide tax options to various people to be able to manage their finances in the most optimal manner is definitely a step in the right direction.
Continuing with the income tax rule changes and reforms, do you think, what were the highlights since 2014? Almost every budget, we have seen some new forms and new measures have been announced by the government. Which are the most important measures, so far as income tax rules are concerned, that you think have brought in more transparency in filing taxes?
Yeah. You see, not only in filing taxes, in the tax adjudication and collection process, there was the introduction of the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme in 2020, which reduced the, given the clogged our judicial system as well as the quasi-judicial system. So a lot of pendency at various levels, plus a lot of money of the government was locked up into tax areas. So with the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, if my memory serves me right, about 80,000 appeals were decided in one go, with the option available to various people to, file one-time taxes and do away with the appellate process on one condition, that you will not go into further appeal. The other path-breaking reform was the move towards faceless regime, moving towards a more transparent and, fair system of adjudication, whereby personal preferences and, other issues that went into the earlier, when you wasted time moving around the departments, filing papers, waiting for your turn to come, sipping endless cups of tea, coffee. So that have been given the go-by, and now we are moving towards a more transparent and a more uniform tax adjudication system. Given that, I think this move towards faceless assessment has definitely been the game changer in the income tax regime in the last 7-8 years, apart from various other issues. So I personally tend to think that this faceless assessment scheme accompanied simultaneously with a more robust, tax information collection system, which gives you with integration among various other departments. The government has a lot of information at its command. So by the introduction of the faceless scheme and the other, strengthening up of the back end, income tax department has not only strengthened itself, but also given a lot of succor and relief to the taxpayer in terms of compliance.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the platform for transparent taxation, honoring the honest in the year 2020 with the aim of making tax systems seamless, painless and faceless. Do you think this initiative has encouraged more people to file taxes, thereby widening the tax base and earning more revenue for the government?
I would definitely tend to think so. The late Mr. Palkhiwala always said that a more transparent regime and a more taxpayer-friendly taxation regime in terms of the slab always leads to more compliance. So with the recent initiatives, accompanied with things such as, this Ask Sampark Kendras, Ayakar Sampark Kendras, the E-Nivaran scheme, the CP Gram portals, all these, in my personal experience, I've seen there have been the department has been pretty reactive and proactive in dealing with all kinds of issues. So given that, I think painless, faceless and seamless objective of the government and Prime Minister, spearheaded by Prime Minister Modi, has definitely led to, improvement in the tax administration, adjudication and appellate processes.
The Finance Act 2021 has inserted a section which provides for the constitution of Dispute Resolution Committee or DRC. How do you overview the performance of DRC?
Well, it's early days yet. DRCs are not yet fully functional. They've been constituted recently and not many people have right now gone into opting for this Dispute Resolution Committee, this alternate mechanism offered by the Section 245 MA to be able to settle their disputes. But nevertheless, as a scheme, as a procedure, I see a lot of benefits for small taxpayers to be able to gain benefits out of opting for the dispute resolution scheme and not going into the long-term appellate process. Because small disputes, sometimes it is best to get them settled through a, alternate dispute resolution mechanism rather than going into the entire appellate process of CIT appeals, ITAT and going ahead. So this is a very welcome step. I only hope the system makes it more robust and we see more the constitution of the committees all across the country is taken up at a speedier date and their rules and their aims publicized so that more and more people are aware and they can take benefit of that.
Apart from, we've been discussing how all these measures that the government has taken in the last 9 years have helped the taxpayer. But in terms of the income tax department, or rather in terms of the government itself, how has these measures, benefited the government so far as making, their life easy, so far as making the government's work easy? and, making things more transparent. So how has it helped the government?
You see, any reform or any process can only succeed if it benefits both the parties or all the parties involved therein. So from the taxpayer or, tax practitioner's point of view, I can say that we've benefited a lot in terms of the transparency and the process mechanism. But in terms of department, from whatever interaction I have, of course, now very limited pursuant to this faceless introduction of the faceless schemes. And the department has, with streamlining of processes and, having SOPs for various things. So things like, people used to keep running around for refunds, for appeal effects, for rectifications. These were small irritants that used to bother both the department and the assessee in a big way. Now with the online processes and with the, systems and standards being set, these things have kind of streamlined. And so it's definitely if not already made, but we are on course to make life easier for the department itself.
We've been seeing a lot of, in the last 9 years, the reforms have, resulted in a lot of transparency like we've been discussing so far. But what is the need, moving ahead, what do you think are the other, measures or the reforms or initiatives that the government can take to make the whole taxation system more structured and, and more transparent?
You see, tax reduction at source and withholding tax. These are two areas which I personally feel the government should, look at simplifying and streamlining the processes. TDS, TCS and withholding tax. These are, I think, a lot of pain points for the assessees as a whole. Because especially when, the conflict with GST, transaction is subject to GST, where the tax should be deducted at source under relevant sections. Because let me tell you, over a period of time, the scope of tax deducted sources widened to cover a whole lot of things, including transactions in the nature of purchase or of goods or sale of goods. So be that as it may, even, section 194M, 194R, 194N, there are a whole lot of sections in that chapter on TDS. So that has made life somewhat more difficult and more requiring a lot of compliances. So a rethink on the part of the government in terms of streamlining this and making compliance more easier and making the reference with respect to GST bit more, the dovetailing with GST a bit more clearer would definitely help. That is one area which I always see is a pain point. That is the area that comes to my mind immediately.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been taking, lead so far as these reforms and initiatives are concerned right from the beginning. So how do you think his direct involvement in this whole process and his vision of a corruption-free India, how has this helped?
You see, definitely if, initiatives come from the top and something which he is very keen about and which he has made it known to people at all levels in the government, both politically as well as bureaucracy, as well as to the public at large. So definitely the reaction, both from the, the compliance perspective as well as from the department's perspective is much higher, and the results are visible for all to see. So this being the case, I think with his, steadfast vision of making the system much more efficient, transparent and seamless, I think with the kind of, the emphasis that is put on the entire process, the results are beginning to show, and things I think can only improve further, and we can only look up for them. There's no going back.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program, Mr. Narayan.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
You are listening to a discussion on 9 years of NDA government transparent taxation system. The participants were Sanjeeva Narayan, Chartered Accountant, and Anubha Rohatgi, Akashvani Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 92890940444.